Well, welcome to the ACE February program. Wanted to remind everybody that ACE is a nonprofit that of professionals and service providers. We provide a lot of array of services to businesses and other organizations. Benefits of being an ACE member: networking, connect with and develop relationships with other consultants, build your referral network. Learning programs such as today's program to learn about the more in depth on the basis of your business, and then promoting your business. We provide opportunities to promote your business through things like our Ask ACE column and Main Biz. I just talked with the editor at Main Biz last night, and he's really excited about the new how-to articles that we've started doing, which are a little more in depth. So it's another great way to learn to help promote your business. Wanted to also mention some upcoming events. So we've got a panel discussion in March, on March 17th at 9 o'clock, and it's about pricing your services. So our panelists will be Allison Lane, who is a pricing expert from the SBDC, our own Bob Labrie, and Sam Bishop to talk about their experiences relative to pricing. So I hope you can sign up and attend that session. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Frye. Jennifer is the CEO of Appreciated Asset Business Solutions. They create, build, and fill sales pipelines for their clients. Their Sales Accelerator program offers a concierge level, done-for-you appointment setting service for industry disruptors. Appreciated Assets team will reach out to your ideal prospects consultatively, educate them about your solution, and set you up with new business appointments. So with that, I would like to introduce Jennifer Frye.
So I'd like to make this interactive. It's going to be difficult while I'm presenting to be able to see everything in the chat. So if Terry and Matthew, if you guys could kind of guide me on what's coming up here.
We'll do so.
Because I really want to be able to address things today that are as relevant as possible for all of you. But what I want to talk to you guys about is how to create intentional growth within your consulting business. And we'll kind of go over what we'll cover. The first thing is, what is intentional growth? So a lot of times when I start speaking with businesses, they tell me that they are growing through word of mouth and referral. And I'd love to see a show of hands of who else in this group that's applicable for. Right, yeah, and me too. Frankly, I've grown quite a bit of my business through that way. It's a beautiful way to grow business. There's very low friction, very high close rate, because when someone recommends you, obviously, that's a great way to bring on a new client quickly. The thing about intentional growth, though, is when you're growing your business through word of mouth and referral, that can only take you to a certain level of your business. Sometimes you have to worry about consistency, quality of those referrals, frequency of those referrals. You know, your best referring partner goes on vacation for 3 weeks, and then your pipeline dries up. Or what I found is, as I've elevated my business and worked with businesses that were producing more, that are higher offers, that the referrals I was getting were not really for my ideal clients. So once I really narrowed in my niche and learned about who I best served, creating an intentional growth strategy was the best way to get very targeted in my prospecting so that I could grow my business in the direction of exactly who I knew I could serve. Because at the end of the day, when you know that there is a group of people that you are there to serve, that you can support and you can offer your services to, it really is your responsibility and your duty to reach out to them and let them know who you are and how you can help them. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to start off with an example of intentional growth so that you guys can really see this put in motion. We had a client about 2 years ago who had a marketing firm that was really successful. Most of her business had come through word of mouth and referral, and about 90% of her clientele was in automotive. And if you all recall what happened in inventory in the automotive industry about 2 years ago, they didn't have any inventory. They did not have cars to sell. So what was the first thing these guys did with their budgets when they don't have cars to sell? They're not marketing. And she knew that that was coming. Because she was so engrossed in the industry, she knew that she was about to get cut, because when businesses don't have any inventory to sell, they're not going to be marketing and spending that line item. So she reached out to us because she really needed to expand out her client portfolio. And we started looking at businesses that were not being affected by the current supply chain issues that the automotive industry was. And she did it in enough of advance notice that when that inventory slowdown, or really it was like a cease, right? If you guys recall what happened about 2 years ago, she did it in enough time that we were able to diversify her out enough with new business clients in other industries, and industries that were a little bit more, again, at that time, recession proof or resistant to downturns in the economy or in supply chain. So we helped her kind of identify those target markets and help her branch out really intentionally with the industries that she was targeting to do that. So how do we achieve this? We're going to talk about why you need both marketing and sales activities. We're going to talk about your sales mindset and the difference between having a heart of service when approaching your sales as opposed to scarcity mindset, and what those activities look like as well. We're going to talk about specifically how to create, build, and fill your sales pipeline. And then we'll also talk about nurturing and developing that pipeline. I'm going to offer you guys 2 bonuses towards the end here. One is called a lead finder. We're going to go through a few of those exercises, but I'll also give you access to the full exercise if you're interested. And then we're also going to talk about disruption. Our Disruptor Designer is a signature service that we launched last year, where we pull really disruptive messaging from our clients to message to their prospect wish list. What we realized is that as much as we were disruptive to the sales industry and the way we delivered, we also knew that we got the best results for businesses that were also disruptive to their own industries. So we help businesses stand out against the status quo. And we're going to go through some exercises as well today as to how you can do that for your own business, create really disruptive messaging. And then Q&A open for anyone who has any questions. Little bit about me. I launched my business 5 years ago after a long time in new business development. I've developed an expertise in strategizing, implementing, and training sales teams and cold calling and appointment setting services. Like I said, we offer a concierge level done for you program. I know we mentioned that. And personally, I am originally from Boston, so go Red Sox, go Pats. And I live in Charleston. I moved here from Manhattan many years ago. I am here with my 8-year-old son, Max, and we travel, we eat out as much as possible. We read anything on or in the water, and occasionally you will catch me running a 5K, but that's pretty occasionally lately. All right, so let's talk about current situation. When we look at this is what I'm going to assume from you all, what things might look like right now. So if you could please either, if you want to get off mute and let me know which of these you tried, or if you want to put it in the chat. What I found is, again, most of the clients we work with have grown their business through word of mouth and referral, but they've also tried a lot of different things when it comes to marketing their business to generate leads. So we've got the funnels and the ads. DMs through LinkedIn is a particular favorite for a lot of people, creating these landing pages, and then that endless hamster wheel of content creation on all of the socials. It can be exhausting between blogging and podcasting and reels. I don't even know what that means really. But there's just so much that can be done at all times in so many different directions. It can be really overwhelming. And you're doing all these things, but you still don't necessarily have, the new business appointments with your ideal leads, and then a consistent pipeline that's filled with new opportunities month after month. Again, it's really about having both at the same time. and you've spent all of this money, time, and energy to create leads, but it's not really generating the results that you're looking for. The other thing that I'm seeing a lot with consultants that I speak to is that they're nearing retirement and they're just ready to close up shop. And I would implore, if that applies to you, that we have a discussion about how creating some more growth in your business in the last few years of that career can really create a sellable asset for you. So you're not walking away from decades of work, of expertise in an industry. You're creating a legacy that you can actually monetize at retirement. And I've got some really specific ways that I could help, or that I could kind of point you in those directions if that applies to anyone here. All right, so let's talk. And was there anything in the chat that I'm missing, Terry? Because I'm not able to see.
No, no chats yet.
All right, you just let me know if anything comes
Okay.
up. I'll go on. Okay, so let's talk about a heart of service versus scarcity. And a lot of these are mindset, and a lot of the mindset drives the activities that we're going to do, right? So scarcity activities are things like email blasts, DMs, social media posts, blogs. The reason I call these scarcity activities is because the outreach is vast, it's quick, it involves really little to no possibility for rejection. So people really like that because the fear of that rejection is pretty, that threshold is pretty low. But I refer to them as scarcity activities because there's always more that can be done. You can always make more LinkedIn connections. You can always send more DMs, and that, like we said, about that endless content hamster wheel that you can be on. And it really puts you into the scarcity mindset of just like more, throwing more and more out there to see what happens. And then there's heart of service activities. And these are activities where you are creating direct connection, person to person, voice to voice, face to face, with someone that is in, again, your ideal prospects list, right? So look, door to door, I don't recommend. I think that ship has sailed. We can all agree. It is a way to create that connection, but highly unrecommended for me. Then there's networking events. And I got to tell you, I know you guys just had an in-person event last month. I love networking events. I'm so glad that they're back in full swing. But it's also really important that you make sure that you are in the right room. This goes back to intentionality, right? I've done the networking things, and I think we all have, where you walk into the room and there's 4 mortgage brokers and 3 realtors, someone selling an MLM, and someone who's got candles that they're selling out of their trunk. And those,
I didn't see you at that event last night, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't go to those rooms. I have, but what happens is I'm just trading a night away from my son to go to a bar that it's just not my people. And it's probably a great room for those mortgage brokers and insurance guys, the Edward Jones guys. That's great networking for them. But for me, I get very, very intentional about where I spend my time networking. And I would really rather hone down to like 3 or 4 events that I never miss, that I'm at every single month, and it's always in my calendar. We have it out for the year of the schedule, to really make sure that, again, you're very intentional. And just think of it every time. Am I in the right room? Is this the room with my ideal prospects? Is this the room with my ideal power partners and strategic partners? Because that's just as beneficial to network with. It doesn't just have to be your direct customer, but networking with businesses that are strategic partnerships for you is super beneficial as well. Other heart of service activities, speaking engagements, anywhere where you're creating visibility for yourself, whether it's a stage, webinar, hello, or podcast. And then there's cold calling, which I have built my entire business on the belief that cold calling is the fastest, most effective way to build rapport with your prospect wish list. All of these other things are great, but you don't know with speaking engagements or networking that those are definitely your ideal customers. You do know with cold calling, when you get very specific, that they are. And again, it's going to be the fastest, most effective way to develop rapport with those people. And here's the thing about cold calling. you're not selling anyone. I'm not selling anyone anything when I make a cold call. I am simply calling to introduce myself and let them know who I am, what I do, and how I can offer support. And sometimes that support looks like, again, a strategic partnership. Sometimes that support looks like, the way Terry and I met, that, I could come speak and share this information with the group. And sometimes that support is more direct in a client engagement. But getting your head out of the idea and that scarcity mentality of like you're trying to sell someone, you're trying to convince someone of something, that's not at all, especially what that first outreach is. You're not selling anyone anything. So just remember that.
So Jennifer, there is a chat.
Oh, there is. Okay. What do we have here? Oh, why is a podcast different from an email blast or a blog? Let's see. So a podcast is different from because it really kind of allows you to show up a little more authentically in a more conversational way that people can interact with you, and it creates visibility to an audience outside of your own personal audience. Where the email blast or a blog is going to go to people who already are aware of you. Podcast is able to expand your visibility out past your immediate circle of influence. Does that make sense?
It seems like a blog would serve the same, just a bit, be a different format, but it could be conversational, and that's certainly the point of writing a blog, would be to expand.
Sure.
People who know. That's why I was wondering what the difference was.
Sure. I mean, again, it's something that the way I look at it, and you're right, like a lot of people base their blogs and their long content off of podcast conversations, and they do things like that. So you are right. It's just typically, again, like with a podcast, that you're able to expose yourself to and expand your visibility beyond people who are already aware of you. Where blogs, it's a bit more of a slow burn because it typically just goes out to your people. Again, as you expand that out. But I'm more than willing to kind of explore that and be open to the fact that it can be both. It can be more than one thing. All right. Is there another chat here that I'm missing?
Mostly they're comments.
Okay.
Priscilla talked about a networking event last night called Builders and Brews, where she signed up a bunch of prospects.
Great.
And her audience does listen to podcasts, but they don't read blogs or articles.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's really important, right? To know, like, how are people in your ideal prospect list consuming information? Let's talk about creating your sales pipeline. Some of this might be super basic for you all, so I am going to go kind of as deep as you need me to here. But is there anyone that would like to volunteer, that we can use you kind of as a live agent? We can do this specifically for your business to really narrow in on your ideal prospect wish list. All right, if there's no one volunteering, that's fine. We'll kind of go through this more generically.
You can use me if you want to, Jennifer.
All right, Terry. So the first thing we want to do when we identify our ideal prospect is look at the industry or vertical. A lot of times people are really afraid to get too specific when they are narrowing their niche. But absolutely the reverse is true in terms of opportunities that it opens for you. The more specific you are, the more clarity you have about who you serve ideally, the higher conversion rate you're going to have when you have those conversations. So let's talk about, Terry, let's talk about your industry. What ideal industries or vertical markets would you say?
So my clients are generally manufacturing something physical. The way I typically describe what I do is I work with the executive teams at manufacturing companies that they haven't objected to grow, but for some reason they are very stuck. And I help explore ways to get them unstuck and back on the road. Usually though, those companies are, I would say, $1 to $5 million is kind of the sweet spot in revenue. There seems to be a plateau there that a lot of people hit, that they can't get over that plateau. And that generally means that the team is somewhere around 15 to 20 people.
Perfect. Geographic region, what does that typically look like for you?
Well, I'm all about economic development in Maine, so I am willing to stay in Maine as much as possible. At the same time, I have to have enough business to keep business going, but
But for intentionally prospecting, so you may be getting, business that's coming to you from, again, that word of mouth and referral outside of Maine,
yes,
right?
right. But I would say that geographically, I limit myself to the Northeast, but
Okay. Excellent. And what about psychographics? So I really want to talk about this because a lot of times, look, we've identified the industry size, geographic region, and decision maker. It sounds like executive teams. So typically C-suite, I'm assuming, would be your
yes,
decision maker. Okay. And with a team of that size, that should be, not a ton of barrier to entry to reach those individuals. But psychographics are something I really like to look at when scrubbing down a lead list. So it's really not about finding 5,000 prospects that are ideal prospects, but narrowing it down to like 200 that are really good prospects for you, because you can always expand that out as you move through those lists. Like we said, we can start in Maine and then we can expand out to the rest of New England, and then we can expand out past that to the Northeast. But really getting into the psychographics as well. So what that looks like is, if you are a business that provides support for executives for work-life balance, for example, we may want to look at businesses that have been named the best manufacturers to work for in Maine in 2022. Or we could take the reverse option, which typically can be a bit of an uphill battle sometimes to get through. But you could look at the businesses that have like the worst reviews on Glassdoor, right? The manufacturers in Maine that are known as the worst places to work, or that just had some terrible PR situation go on because of the poor work conditions. That may be an opportunity for you to say, hey, I can support your business with these programs that we can implement for your teams and really help turn the ship around. Again, that's a bit more of an uphill battle sometimes when you're coming from someone who's in a bit of crisis mode. But when you already can identify businesses that are already identified as the best places to work and best places for working parents, or best places for women to advance their careers. The other thing that I look at for psychographics are mission-based businesses. So businesses that are supporting specific community involvement, or charities that have maybe a give back program publicly or for their teams. Those are identifiers that can help you connect if those are also missions that are important to you and your organization as well. So that's another way to take things, because it really, again, will help you develop rapport when you're reaching out, and we'll discuss that in a few more minutes. Okay, so now let's talk about building your sales pipeline. This is pretty basic, guys, but I want to go through it so that everyone is on the same page. So once you have your ideal client avatar, you're going to go ahead and start sourcing those leads and really creating the list. The most obvious way to start is going to be with a Google search for the industry and the geographic location. You're going to identify your initial prospect list. You're going to get the decision maker name from, usually LinkedIn is a great way to start. You don't even need Sales Navigator. You can just use LinkedIn Basic for it. There's platforms you can use to collect more data, to get more decision maker information. But I would start there, and I would highly recommend that you do not purchase any data lists. Anytime I've had a client do this, it is a huge waste of time and money. They're not accurate. They're really, really expensive. And it's just nothing that you can't either outsource, get a VA to do. It's not worth the time to buy those lists. Especially since COVID, when there was so much movement in positions and within organizations. Really, really outdated information. Okay, so we've created the sales pipeline, we've built it, and now we're going to fill it. And once we have that ideal prospect list, there's really two main strategies to reach out to them. And the first most popular that we've talked about is electronically, right? low threshold for rejection. You can do LinkedIn, DMs. They're absolutely not effective on me at all. I can't stand them because I can tell that they're copy and pasted. And really, I love when I get lead generation companies approaching me to do lead generation for my business. They're not looking at you. They're not interested in you. It's just an absolute blast campaign. So they're ineffective, but they're easy, right? Email, again, it can work. But for the most part, looking at that direct, we've already talked about door to door, but networking can be really time consuming. It's exhausting. And man, if you go to that wrong networking event, it was cool that you went to the one where you booked some new business clients the other night. You're definitely in the right room there, and keep going to that one. But when you spend time going to the wrong one, you check out a new group and it is just not your people. It just can be a really inefficient use of your time. And then there's cold calling, which again, it's the most effective, time efficient way to build rapport with your prospect wish list. And you can get those meetings scheduled. So we do this with our own business and for our clients with new verticals all the time. And it results in new business appointments every single time. Every time by doing this. But it takes a couple factors to really build an effective campaign. So the first is going to be that great list that we just built, that we just talked about. There's going to be that value proposition that really sets you apart from the competition. And the whole point, you guys, is to set you so far apart from the competition in terms of service and delivery and the way you support their business that you essentially eliminate the competition from consideration. There is no more apples to apples, you and the other guy. There is you and there is no one else to consider. And that's what creating disruptive messaging really will do for your business. And then there's having impeccable follow-up and follow-through. So I'll tell you guys a little story about follow-up and follow-through. I've been doing this for a really, really long time. I've been in business development for decades, and I cold call for my own business. I cold call for, well, we have a team who cold calls for our clients. And I had a business that I'd worked with about a decade ago, an organization that I worked with that I did some consulting with them, and we worked really well together. And the individual that I worked with most closely was still at the organization. I knew with our service now that we could really support his initiatives there. This is actually, funny enough, Terry, also in the manufacturing space. And I reached out to him last year. I think it was like last June that I reached out and left him a message. Chris, trying to reach you, give me a shout when you can. Didn't hear back. Another 4 days, called again, called until I was like, God, maybe he was not such a fan of working with me, or maybe he doesn't remember who I am. Maybe he didn't like working with me as much as I liked working with him. Well, I did keep calling, and he called me back maybe about 6 or 8 weeks later. And he apologized profusely to me. He'd been in Yellowstone with his family in an RV, essentially cut off from communication purposefully, and was like, I'm so glad you reached out. What's going on? We talked. I told him I was trying to reach him. He's now one of my biggest referral partners, as well as a direct client of ours. And had I stopped calling him after one time or two times because I decided that he just doesn't like me or he's not interested in what I have to offer, before really, again, educating him about what that was, I never would have had that relationship that I have now if I believed that story in my head. But I just want to tell you guys, again, after decades of doing this, I do still get that in my head. And I realize it's just a story. That's all it is. And if you can just realize that people have a lot going on other than calling you back or taking your call today. They've got sick kids they've got to pick up from school, or parent that's in the hospital, or they've got a fire at business that they've got to deal with, an employee that just left them with no notice. So there's a lot going on. For us to make it personal is really silly, and it's going to limit us from creating really great opportunities to grow our businesses. So
Jennifer?
Yes.
I'm Angela Hansen. Hi, everybody. We just started Range Culture Co., which brings improvisation to business for training and sort of enhancement of some foundational skills. And I just want to accentuate what you just said, because I kind of learned that organically on my own just by seeing a situation, believe it or not, in the newspaper. And I reached out to the leader of that particular organization and said, we have some things that may help you. I noticed this happened. If you'd like to talk about it, I would be willing to come in and have a conversation and help you out if it's, if you find that appealing. And sure enough, to your point, a few days went by. I didn't have to follow up, but I would have. He did call me, and they're now our biggest client. So I sort of stumbled upon this in an organic way. And I just wanted to sort of accentuate how impactful it's been, to your point, for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And they obviously, being in crisis mode, we're open to being supported. And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Sometimes you're going to run across a business that's not open to being supported, which is why they're in that situation in the first place, right? But again, not making that decision for anyone else, letting them come to that after they have all the information in front of them. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. In terms of follow-up, I'm going to tell you guys my best practices is go 90 days, every 4 business days for 3 months. And it can be a phone call after, a month and a half, 2 months. If you want to go over to email, this is why I'm trying to reach you, do that. But really reaching out consistently and persistently. People who don't appreciate that, if you're convicted that you can support them, that you can offer help to their organization, it really is your duty to reach out like that until you reach them. And if people are rude to you, it has zero to do with you. I will tell you guys all the same thing I tell my 8-year-old son. Hurt people hurt people. If someone's a jerk to you, it has zero to do with who you are. It has to do with who they are. And look, we're all established enough in our businesses that I don't want to work with jerks. I doubt you do either. So if someone is unkind to you, they have self-selected themselves out, and be grateful for that you saw that early on and didn't waste any further time with that. But to take anything like that personally, to let that say anything about who you are, you're just holding back your solution from a lot of other really wonderful people who are open and welcome to receiving it. Okay. So, all right, so what do I say? You're going to introduce yourself. You're not going into a pitch. I hate this whole elevator pitch or rebuttal tout close. And I was trained in all of that in New York City with this bro marketing, salesy, if you get an objection, you've got to shoot it down and volley back and forth. Look, you're calling to introduce yourself. You tell them what you love about their business, what you really identify with. Find the common ground of, again, location. I'm here in Maine as well. The industry, I work with a ton of manufacturers all over the state. Or you talk about the impact. I see that you are, really tied into environmental causes in this state. I am as well. I love the work you're doing, and I would love to talk to you about how I might be able to support you with that. Talk about, ask questions as they arise organically and find out about what their biggest challenges are. One of the questions I love is, what's keeping you busiest right now? Because if it's not something that you can support with, maybe you have a resource for them that you can help, and then you keep that conversation open. I love being a resource for my clients and for my prospects, because if I can give them value, how cool is that to be able to connect them with someone else who can absolutely help with what they're dealing with now. You talk about how you can accelerate their goals with your service, if and when that applies. And then you ask for an appointment for an in-depth conversation. And if the answer is no, really try to turn that no into a not now. And here's how you do that. A lot of times I'll speak to people who say, I'm not interested. I'll say, well, no problem. When would be an ideal time to circle back with you? I don't ask when would be an ideal time of the year, because that, for some reason, psychologically I feel like people give you longer timelines when you say time of year. You just say, when is an ideal time to circle back with you? And I have responses come back to me from give me a week to, give me 6 months. And I'll tell you what, someone who tells me they're not interested, and then I say, when's an ideal time to circle back? They say, try me next week. I mean, that's not a no. I'm going to blink and it's going to be next week. So if you don't answer that question, you are absolutely missing opportunities and leaving those on the table. One of the best experiences that I've had when I talk about what do you love about their business, I have a set of luggage, and you guys, I'm obsessed with this luggage. It is the best luggage I've ever used. It's called Attach Luggage. I love it. It's all attachable, and for a single mom, I can pull 4 pieces of luggage with my son on it. I have no stroller. It's so easy to travel with him on my own. And it's been a game changer for me in the way I travel. And I loved it so much, I reached out to the company. And I reached out to them multiple times because they were in Dubai when I first started working with them. And I said, I am obsessed with your luggage. Like, I will never use another set of luggage. I buy it for everyone that I can as gifts because it really is the best luggage I've ever owned. And I don't know how I'm going to work with you, but I have to work with you. I think you're amazing, and I think everyone needs this luggage. And don't you know, they were a client. There was no sell. There was no pitch. We figured out a way to collaborate together because I truly and genuinely am obsessed with their product. And I find that when you can come with that sort of authenticity to how you can support and how you can help and really how passionate you are about the work that they're doing, it creates really natural connections, and you don't have to worry about pitching anyone anything. All right. And that's all you need to do. So really just to kind of wrap this up, you're going to narrow your niche. You're going to create your ideal prospects list. The value proposition is really important. Follow up. Just commit and set that time in your calendar. When you block it in your calendar, even if you don't have time for the next 2 weeks, decide to start in 2 weeks and block that time in your calendar so that you have that set aside for the follow-up. And you will create new business opportunities if you follow this method. All right, so let's talk about some bonuses, because this is one of the things we do is called our lead finder activity. If you guys want this full exercise, just email me. My email address is there. If you want the full exercise, because we've got plenty more places to look. But a lot of times people are like, yeah, but I don't know what leads. I don't have any leads. You do. Everyone has leads. Beyond that list that we created already, you guys, you have leads that you're not even thinking about. So first, most obvious is like an old CRM that you no longer use. You know, maybe you set up a Zoho account or a Sales Hub account years ago. You have a spreadsheet from it, and it's just never been touched. You've never done anything with it. So those are your leads. An attendee list from your last speaking engagement. And if you don't have that list, reach back out. I've reached out to speaking engagements that I had 6 months after the event and asked for the list, and I was given it. A lot of times, always ask in advance, but a lot of times, especially if you're not charging for your speaking, they're happy to provide that list for you. So any attendee list. Social media engagements. You know those people who keep liking your posts, who keep sharing your content or commenting, following you. They see you on all these different platforms. Those are leads for you. Those are people who know who you are. Alumni publications. I just got, I've gotten like 2 this week. This is for my business school. I scroll through these every single time, and I look for businesses that are strategic partnerships, as well as businesses that I can support directly. I also look for classmates that I personally know, seeing their information. And again, just sending up, offering ways to be resources for people is a really great way to reconnect. And then we all have these, sometimes we go to networking events, right? We all have these old-fashioned business cards, right, on our desks. I have shoe boxes of them. And those are leads as well. Not all of them, but you can scan through those as you refine who your ideal list is and go, yeah, this is someone who wasn't an ideal lead for me 2 years ago, but now they really are, because of the way I've elevated my work, because of the new focus that we have in our delivery and service, there may be people you haven't heard from or spoken to in years that are going to be great for you. So if you want the full exercise, please reach out and I'm happy to send that along in a PDF format for you. And then I also want to talk about disruptive messaging. So like I said, we have an exercise called our Disruptor Designer, where we take our clients through an extensive series of messaging exercises to really pull out their disruptive nature. But I'm going to do really basic do's and don'ts for you today. The first don't is if you are pitching on being 5% better or 10% faster, like you're boring and no one cares. It does not get anyone to move on those like small percentage points. It's not exciting and it's not different from what they're hearing in other places. And pitching on price in general is not going to create value. All that's going to do is create a buyer who's buying you to buy the cheapest. And as soon as someone comes along that offers a cheaper option, they will cut you. So it's just never a way that you want to sell your services on price. Instead, you want to talk about the fact that you are better, faster, and a better investment. Again, not cheaper, but a better investment. But you want to talk about how, very specifically how. What value can you provide on an initial discovery call? So I really like to do this. It's like, look, whether you work with me or not, I will go through with you. I'll help you find that initial 50, that list, through our lead finder. Or we can create some disruptive messaging for you. Whether you work with me or not, you're going to pull that value away from an initial discovery call with us. And then what are the results a client will see when they work with you? You always want to tie everything to the results, not just for the organization, you guys, but for the individual that you are calling on. A great example of that are people in HR, I have found, are so overworked, so understaffed, they are exhausted. They are still dealing with, I believe, PTSD after COVID and what that did for their organizations. And if you call an HR department with an HR benefit, they don't care. Like, it's just one more thing for them to have to onboard and deal with, and they don't have the bandwidth. But if you explain to them how that makes their life easier, what the result is not just for their teams, but for them personally, and really tie that in, that makes a big difference as well. And then again, if you guys want to explore what that looks like a little more specifically, you can email me, same thing, and we can kind of go through that specifically for your business. And just final thoughts, if you guys want more leads, if you want to be able to create disruptive messaging and grow your business, I am also offering 5 spots available to mastermind on how you could do that either on your own or with our support, but really base that conversation on your specific challenges and growth goals. So if you'd like to do that, reach out. Same thing, Jennifer@appreciatedasset.com. All right, guys. Questions, comments, or I will be happy to take a standing ovation.
We're standing. We've all been standing.
Good. Oh, good. Good. I can look at the chat now that I've got this up. Oh, okay. Are there any questions or any specific,
Bob.
Hey, this was great.
Thank you.
I don't think people realize when I usually open this kind of training with, what do you get paid to do? And everybody says, I get paid to close, I get paid to sell houses or whatever. In reality, can any of that occur if you don't have a lead? If you don't have that person to talk to, you're out of business if you're self-employed, right? So that you get paid to find prospects. You get paid to find leads in a proactive, consistent, sustained manner. And that's exactly what you talked about. Great message.
Thank you.
I have to also agree with Bob that, I run into so many new coaches or new consultants, and they want to coach anybody in anything, but they end up coaching nobody or consulting nobody. And I'm one who has developed a very unique niche. A lot of people haven't heard of my niche. I only consult with contractors and the trades businesses. And so I'm sought after by the industries. This has been my busiest year on record because I have industries reaching out to me. And I think once consultants can do that for themselves, then it's huge. It just makes it so much easier. You're not chasing people, they're coming to you instead.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, developing that niche it creates a level of expertise that no one else can offer because no one else has been that brave to go that deep. So bravo to you. That's great. Anyone else?
Hey, Jennifer, I'll just toss this out here. So I'm John, and hey, thank you, really outstanding information, and certainly your delivery is wonderful. I'm going to be very make myself vulnerable here and say I am just barely dipping my toe in the water of this whole wonderful industry. I had a 40-year career in retail where I worked in lower, salesperson, mid management, and upper management, and have experience with building teams, build efficiencies, building sales, and cutting costs. And my question for you is like, and this is probably bigger scope than this group, is how do you even get started with some of these things, like finding networking events and getting yourself out there? Because again, I'm just trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Again, I think once you can identify who that ideal prospect is, then you want to look at what associations are they going to, what events are they going to, what organizations are they a part of, right? Right. And then making yourself available in those circles. That's probably how I would start. I'd also look at, there's so many great online organizations and online networking, where you don't necessarily have to be in the room physically,
right.
But you still get really great face time.
Right. Doing some digging.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a little bit of digging, but also asking. If you have those ideal prospects that you have good rapport with, ask them, where are they doing their networking? What associations are they a part of?
Right.
Not just what are they a part of, but which ones do they really favor?
Right. Get in the right room.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Jennifer. Tom Fournier.
How are you?
I want to appreciate your presentation. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this today and meeting with all of us. Just to add the off of John's piece here, I'm also relatively new to consulting, and most of my stuff is level from just my previous life. And one of the things I learned, John, pretty quickly was going to those chamber events and not really doing the research on some of those things. And seeing a lot, it's like fishing with a large net. You're seeing a lot of things that may not meet your ideal, but one thing that was really helpful for me was making that list, like Jennifer talked about, of my ideal clients. And then I went to the presidents of the Chamber of Commerce and talked to them. Here's the list of the industries that I'd like to be introduced to. You know anyone that's there that I could be introduced to. And within a day, my field of hundreds of people that I could be introduced to was narrowed down to 10 people, and then within a couple coffees, I'm talking to C-suite leadership. So it was refining that and taking that list and realizing very quickly, being aware that this is not necessarily my client base, but then reaching out and doing those. And then before you know it, you start to get two or people at different levels. Again, being in the places, in the spaces where they live and they work, just it has that cool energy. So lesson learned from reinforcing Jennifer's talk there, but also just someone who might be maybe half a step ahead of you, be at best, that learned the lesson the hard way. But thank you so much.
Thank you.